It's a high-performance system. It's got evolution of gaming. It's a digital station. It's got fan turbo with best cooling. And it's got status. For those of you who haven't guessed it, it is the MS Tech Hornet. Okay, so anyway, this custom gaming PC doesn't start, and we're going to find out why. Good, those fans are already disconnected. So this is a pretty old system, and the customer doesn't sound like they particularly care. They just want a working computer. So our only real job here is just simply to make good. We've got a FX based system. It's an AM3 CPU there, AM3 Plus, sorry. Quite a lot of dust under the cooler, so that's obviously not had any love in quite a while. We've got a fairly beefy looking graphics card, but it's probably very old. It's a GTX 550 Ti, thank you very much. So that's obviously pretty pants by today's standard, but there it is. We've got a single stick of RAM. What's that? It's GEAL. It's PC 10600, and I'm guessing it's 4 gigabytes because it's 4 GB NT. So yeah, not a lot of RAM. But then on the other hand, 4 gigs of RAM, that's period to the age of this computer. So that sounds about right. Yeah, that's all there is to say, really. This power supply looks pretty bad. But there's no labels on it, so I can't check the rails on it. Let's turn it on and see what it does. Did they have HDMI back in those days? Oh good, they did. Right, power on at the back and power on at the front. Alright, it has ignited, that's a good start. Let's switch on the game capture. It looks like it ain't posting. So that's exactly what the customer said. So that's doing exactly what we were told. Fine, okay. It's got a beep speaker plugged into it, but I can see from here that it's connected the wrong way round. Pro tip, your positive pins are always toward the back of the computer. So down here, you can see that beep speaker. The red wire is toward the front of the computer. So I'm going to pull that out and turn it around and just see if we're getting any beep codes. And if I'm lucky, I won't stick my hand into the graphics card fan. Right, that's quiet at the moment. I'm going to hit the reset button just to see if it'll do anything. Does it have a reset? Yes, it does. It's got some seriously rusted front USB ports. That might actually be our issue. Good grief. I must have had a can of soda dumped on it. Oh, that's fun. It beeped once, and it posted. Interesting. Is that going to start booting into Windows? Preparing automatic repair. Huh, okay. So it's an intermittent start. Alright. Okay. I stepped away for 5 minutes and came back to a black screen. Or rather, no signal. And I'm pushing the reset button now just to see if we can get back to where we previously were. And it looks like we're back into a no post situation. So it looks like we've got a bit of an intermittent boot here. It's possible that given a bit of abuse, it will start. Like, you know, just pressing the reset button a couple of times. But it's not stable. So even though we did get one post out of it, it looks like we're going to have to look over it a couple of times to sort of confirm that it works. So let's start going over it stage by stage. So we've got quite a lot of test hardware available to us. My primary suspects are the power supply and the graphics card. The power supply looks a bit naff. And the graphics card, the fan on it doesn't sound particularly healthy, and it's an old graphics card. The customer's actually supplied a spare graphics card, which is a GeForce GT 710 here. So that's pretty naff as well, although technically it's 2 generations newer than what's in there. So he doesn't need to game on it. Again, we just need to make good. So let's start swapping some parts over. Since we've got the spare graphics card, we'll start with that. Okay, let's get this graphics card out. Right, so this 710 looks newer. However, of course, I've no idea if this even works. That's the I should have a spare graphics card around at the moment. In fact, I do. No, I don't. It's on loan. My spare graphics card is on loan. This is the thing about having test hardware, is that you need to have test hardware that you actually know. But on the other hand, at least with this thing, if it does anything different, then we'll know that we're making progress. But yeah, ideally you should be testing with hardware that you're familiar with. So if it does something weird, at least you know, okay, that's fine. That's expected behavior. For example, my spare graphics card at the moment is a 7850. And now and then my 7850 throws up graphical artifacts. And that's fine because I know what the graphical artifacts it throws up look like. So if I see them, I know that that's just my testing card and not the computer. Anyway. Fine, power on. Power on. Right, we haven't had a post beep, so that sounds like that's no progress. Fair enough. Okay, well, my next guess is the power supply in that case. So, I'm going to hit the reset button first, just to see if it posts from that. Because the only post we've had so far has just been from when we powered it up and then reset it. Nothing? Really hard to tell when you push that reset button in far enough. No, this thing's going nowhere. Okay, let's change the power supply. Oh, also, before I change the power supply, I'm going to unplug all the front panel stuff. Because I remember now, this thing had the really rusty looking front panel on it. So I'm going to disconnect all the front panel stuff and we'll just see if that makes any difference at all. And we'll keep the beep speaker plugged in, but I'll unplug the pin headers as well. Okay, and now we're going to jump start it with some tweezers on the power switch pins. Sounds like that made no difference whatsoever. I'm going to leave it to run for a sec while I get my Antec. So it's not those USB ports, which still look really sketchy and probably need cleaning up, but we'll see. Don't know how much work I'm going to put into this thing. We're just going to get it running first. I'm going to plug in the power button again, just so I can switch it on easily. Then we need ATX. We need CPU power. And that should do it. Okay, power at the back. And power button. And it posted first time. Straight away, no hesitations. Okay. Right, so that should go, yeah, reboot or insert, blah, blah, blah. All the drives are disconnected. Cool. Okay, I'm going to turn that off and then turn it on again, just to make sure it wasn't a fluke. Wait for the fan to stop. And on. And it posted again. we'll give it the traditional 3 times. Power off. Power on. And it processes again. Yeah, it's just a bad power supply. Okay. Right, I'm going to get on the blower to the customer then, and we'll see if they want to replace the power supply in this thing. Which is, as I mentioned at the start of this video, they just want a working computer. And this thing is kind of old, but then on the other hand, they've only got a, you know, yeah, I don't know. See, it's only 40 quid for a power supply, but then it's 40 quid plus my labour. And that's the annoying thing about computer repairs, is that my flat fee for repairs is £50. So, you know, it's actually going to end up being, you know, like 90 quid. I might subsidise down to 80 to push the price down a bit. But I don't know. On the other hand, it's still 80 quid to get a computer running. The hardest part of this job is trying to decide how much to charge, you know, and it's very difficult. I live and work in a small countryside town. We're quite rural around here, which means prices are low. You know, if you're in the middle of London, they'll charge you 100 quid before they know what make the computer is. Whereas this isn't the middle of London, it's not the middle of Manhattan, it's a small rural town, and no one's got any money around here. So, hardest part of the job. All right, I'm going to call, what I will do, as just to give you more insight into how I do this, is I call the customer up and I say, this is what's wrong with it, this is how much the parts cost, and I start gauging their response. And if they start going, you know, if he starts going, oh, as soon as I say 40 quid for a power supply, he's obviously not going to be impressed when I tell him it's actually about 80 or 90 quid with my labour on top of it. However, if he goes, if I say sort of, oh, you know, it's 40 quid for a power supply, and he's like, oh, that's all right. And I'm like, yeah, it's £50 for my labour as well. And he's like, okay, then you're on for a winner. So sometimes you just need to gauge the client and see how much they're willing to spend. Because at the end of the day, it's not up to you whether it's value for money. It's up to the client as to if they think it's value for money or not. You can give someone the best value for money in the world, but it's whether they think it's worth it or not that matters. That's the problem. All right, I will see you guys after the cut. Well, that was a no-go. So that's the end of that one. Customer is not going to repair. So, some you win, some you lose. But we found out what's wrong with it, put a new power supply in this thing, and it would have been fine. But given the age of the computer and the customer's general lack of interest in it, that was a no-go. This is one of those times where having free diagnostics kind of sucks, but we didn't spend too much time on it. Not a big deal. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.